Hey guys, welcome to the Daily Word Bible Study, a plain and simple book by book, chapter by chapter, verse by verse study through the entire Bible. Currently, we are in Lamentations, chapter 4. And again, just so you know, this is structured in a poetic way where each verse kind of corresponds to the Hebrew alphabet. Okay, but it is an expression, a song of lament, anguish, dirge, as it were, that expressing um, the judgment, the condition of the result of the judgment on Israel, how they sit, how they are now sit in destruction, how the people are dispersed, the suffering of the people that suffered during the brutal attack and invasion of Nebuchadnezzar, how it lies. So this is kind of what Lamentations is expressing, and a different wide range of emotions and perspective. So on the one hand, they're saying you guys deserve this, but on the other hand, God is saying, oh, I hate that this happened to you. Then you see the other perspective, point of view, from Jerusalem's perspective, as Jerusalem is speaking. As Jerusalem is speaking, God, you know, do you see us, right? Do you hear our anguish, Lord? Um, and then it says, look at around, look at what happened to us. Look at the people, look at the women that have suffered, the infants that literally starved to death in their arms. Look at how everyone laughs at us. No one's helping us. They laugh at us. And then you see another perspective where it says, yeah, we deserve all of this, but let us not forget that God is always merciful to us, that God will never forsake us, that we could examine ourselves, and we could turn back to the Lord. This is something we should do, guys. We should return to the Lord, turn ourselves to the Lord. So, okay, let's go up and do this. All right. All right. So chapter 4, again, it switches the alphabet. It starts again. Each of these poems or songs or dirge or just expressions of anguish. As again, you can tell they start with the beginning of the alphabet. So there were 5 all along. I think this is the 4th one, maybe, or the 4th one, or 4. Anyway, so it says, Aleph, how the gold has become tarnished, the fine gold become dull. The stones of the temple lie scattered, and at the corner of every street. Uh, so again, you have to kind of go. If you go back to the last chapter of Jeremiah, you see kind of the detailed review of the destruction of Jerusalem and the temple. The temple was completely destroyed. All of the gold, even the gold that was sometimes on the walls and different, was just stripped. Okay, bet Zion's precious people, once worth their weight in pure gold, how are they regarded as clay jars, the work of the potter's hand? Now you remember, Jeremiah, God gave Jeremiah a prophecy on the potter's hand. He says, isn't Israel like, I'm the potter, y'all the clay, and I can do what I want? So I made this pot, and this is how this prophecy went out. I made this pot, didn't work out. I destroyed the potter, right? The clay jars, the potter. Uh, so, um, uh, and this is again one of the things that people will forget, that they are, um, mankind forgets that he is at the potter disposal, not the other way around. People are the potter, are the clay jars. We are the work of the potter's hands. Okay, Gimel. Even jackals offer their breasts to nurse their young, but my dear people have become cruel like ostriches in the wilderness to let the nursing infant's tongue cling to the roof of his mouth from thirst. Little children beg for bread, but no one gives them any. Those who used to eat delicacies are destitute in the streets. Those who were reared in purple garments huddle in garbage heaps. Again, notice the imagery here, how horrible this is. In other words, this actually, this is coming from people who actually experience this. Imagine, and I can, all of the delicacies we enjoy. And let me say this delicately too, that we could see this right now. We witness this on the news, on our nightly news of what's going on in the Middle East. The people who want, this could actually be that. People who want, people who want, have delicacies, enjoyed delicacies, can't even find food to eat among garbage heaps. Every night on the news, okay, social media, it's filled with images like that of what's going on in the Middle East right now. All right, the Vav, the punishment of my dear people is greater than that of Sodom, which was overthrown in an instant without a hand laid on it. Now, that's kind of think about that. That is a perspective, because that is what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah. That just boom, the fire came down, the rain came down, fire and brimstone came down and destroyed them in an instant. Their punishment happened over a 2-year period of time. The anguish of that. Zion, her dignitaries were brighter than snow, whiter than milk. Their bodies were more ruddy than coral, and their appearance like sapphire cat. Now they appear darker than soot, and they are not recognized in the street. Their skin has shriveled on their bones. It has become dry like wool. By the way, you can see pictures of the Holocaust of this kind of emaciated people right here. Tet. Those slain by the sword are better off than those slain by hunger, who waste away, pierced with pain, because the fields lack produce. Yod. The hands of the compassionate women have cooked their own children. They became their food, doing the destruction of my dear people. This is what they were reduced to. Now, again, these were people who stayed. They didn't surrender. God told them that if you surrender, it would go well with you. There were many who did surrender. They didn't. Calf. The Lord has exhausted his wrath, poured out his burning anger. He has ignited a fire in Zion and has consumed her foundations. So the wrath of God, so again, keep this in mind, that his wrath, there's a couple of ways that God could execute his wrath, or many ways that God can use his wrath, execute his wrath. One, he can execute his wrath by using people, as he did with Nebuchadnezzar. Then two, you can use natural occurrences, hurricanes, floods, and then God can unrelease his power himself. Okay? So, and that you can see, it doesn't take much for God to judge. Lim, the kings of the earth and all the world inhabitants do not believe that an enemy or an adversary could enter Jerusalem gates. Meme. Yet it happened because of their sins of her prophet and the guilt of her priests. Who shed the blood of the righteous within her? None. Blind, they stumbled in the streets, defiled by his blood, so that no one dared to touch their garments. Samak. Semek, stay away, unclean people, shouted at them, away, away, don't touch us. So they wandered aimlessly. It was said among the nations, they can stay here no longer. P. The Lord himself has scattered them. He regards them no more. The priests are not respected, the elders find no favor. Ayin. And all the while our eyes were failing, as we looked in vain for assistance, we watched from our towers for a nation that refused to help. So on top of all of this, they could find no one to help them. Tasaid, Tisaid, our steps were closely followed so that we could not walk in our streets. Our end drew near, our time ran out, our end is come. Oof. Koof. Okay. Those who chased us were swifter than eagles in the sky. They relentlessly pursued us over the mountains and ambushed us in the wilderness. Resh. The Lord's anointed, the breaths of our lives, were captured in their traps. We had said about them, we will live under his protection among the nations. Sin. So rejoice. So rejoice and be glad, daughter Edom, you residents of the land of Oz. Yet the cup will pass you. Yet the cup will pass to you as well, and you will get drunk and expose yourself. Now, when he says the cup will pass to you as well, remember, God also prophesied. Remember all of the. Remember when we went through. We got to that section of Jeremiah, and we're going to do the same with. We did the same with Isaiah, and we will do the same with Ezekiel. You get to a place where he begins to prophesy about all the nations surrounding Israel that he's going to judge as well. Okay, it was tedious to read, but think about it. Now we can see, hey, God is telling them, I ain't forgot about you. I ain't forgot about you, Tev. Daughter Zion, your punishment is complete. He will not lengthen your exile, but he will punish your iniquity, daughter Edom, and he will expose your sins. Edom were the descendants of Esau, okay? The descendants of Esau, who was Jacob's brother. Now, Esau was the firstborn, but yet God just hated Esau. Now, the word hate had to be very interesting. Esau was a very profane person. He's one of these persons that you never wanted around because he was, he was crude. He was bad. He was evil, right? He was so bad that he sold his birthright just for a bowl of soup, okay? And God said, look at this fool, right? So anyway, these are the descendants that he's talking about. Now, chapter 5, and you see now, this is just going to be not so much as the poem now, because you see none of the letters of the alphabet here that it happening. So it says, and it's going to come from the perspective, again, of them praying to Jerusalem, praying to the Lord. Now, you remember this imagery always is kind of interesting. Jesus in the 23rd chapter of Matthew, remember he said, Jerusalem, Jerusalem, oh, how I wanted to gather you and your children. So, the imagery of how he speaks, I don't think he speaks, when he speaks of the city, he is referring to the people, but collectively. Okay, so he's speaking to the people collectively. It says, Yahweh, remember what has happened to us. Look and see our disgrace. Our inheritance has been turned over to strangers, our houses to foreigners. Now, that's kind of partially true, not so much as Jerusalem, but certainly in the northern kingdom of Israel. This is why we had um, the Samaritans. Okay, so that's so anyway. Our inheritance has been turned over to strangers, and our houses to foreigners. We have become orphans and fatherless. Our mothers are widows. We must pay for the water we drink. Hmm. I should. This is interesting. We have to pay for water we have to drink. I'm thinking about how much water we pay for. Do you know that water? This is certainly a sidebar. But do you know that water that water is one of the sometimes companies' biggest revenues? And this is despite that uh, a lot of times we have um, tap water. Okay. Anyway, don't let me get off on that rant. He said, verse 4 again, we must pay for the water we drink, and our wood comes at a price. We are closely pursued. Now, also keep this in mind. I say that, but let me kind of balance this out that this is an agrarian society. And so basically, they're used to producing their own wood. They have their own livestock and all of that. So they didn't have to really go, they didn't have supermarkets the way we think about supermarkets. Uh, Especially our supermarkets we need them for our survival today. Because, like for example, I don't have any cows, chickens, and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, I do digress. Verse 5: We are closely pursued. We are tired, and no one offers us rest. We made a treaty with Egypt, wrong, and with Assyria to get enough food, a bad idea. Our fathers sinned. They no longer exist, but we bear their punishment. Slaves rule over us. No one rescues us from their hands. We secure our food at our own risk of our lives because of the sword in the wilderness. Our skin is hot as a oven, and um, and from ravage of hunger. Women are raped in Zion, girls in the cities of Judah. So this is kind of the prayer, but this is the anguish of what is, again, the result of them not obeying God. And God said this would happen to you. The horrors of war is what we are seeing through their eyes here. For to princes are hung up by their hands, elders are shown no respect, young men labor at the millstone, but boys stumble under the load of the woods. In other words, they are serving with rigor. No, verse 14, elders have left the city gate, the young men their music. Joy hath left our hearts. Our dancing is turned into mourning. The crown has fallen from our heads. Woe to us, for we have sinned. So right there, that sums it up. We have sinned. Because of this, our heart is sick. Because of these, our eyes grow dim. Because of Mount Zion, which lies desolate, and has jackals prowling in it. You, Lord, are enthroned forever. Your throne endures from generation to generations. Why have you forgotten us forever, abandoned us for our entire lives? Lord, restore us to yourself so that we may return. Renew our days as in former times, unless you have completely rejected us and are intensely angry with us. Now, so this is from their perspective. We already know what God feels for them. For example, in Jeremiah, he says, I know thoughts I have towards you, the plans, and they're all good, right? So this is from their perspective, how they are, the anguish you would feel if you were in that situation. And suffering, you can almost say, is always a lonely road. You feel rejected, alone, okay? Because as the world is going on around you, no one, you're feeling the anguish of your heart. All right, guys, that is the book of Lamentations. Stay tuned for Ezekiel because that is going to be a very, very interesting book. All kinds of creatures. Okay, don't forget to like and share this video and subscribe to BP, the Bible Perspective. And as always, if you have a thought or comment, add it to the comment section below. All comments are welcome. I'll see you in the book of Ezekiel.